Welcome to this informative session on revised draft ESRS on the social standards. Whether you're compiling your company's sustainability report or using that data to drive investment decisions, you've probably heard of the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. But big changes just landed. In this video, we'll walk you through changes that we are proposing for the 4 social standards: ESRS S1 Own Workforce, ESRS S2 Workers in the Value Chain, ESRS S3 Affected Communities, and ESRS S4 Consumers and End Users. We have reduced the number of detailed narrative disclosures considerably. We have also reduced the number of disclosure requirements about policies, actions, targets, stakeholder engagement, and processes for remediation in each social standard from 5 to 4. We did this through merging the disclosure requirements about engagement and about remediation. Now let's take a closer look at the changes made. Firstly, the ESRS 2 SBM2 and SBM3 topical disclosures from Set 1 have been completely deleted, except for the SFDR PAI data points, which have been retained and are now included in ESRS 2 IRO2 within the amended standards. Moving to S1 S4 Disclosure Requirements 1, 3, 4, Policies, Actions, and Targets. These have been simplified in line with the changes in ESRS 2 GDRPT to avoid potential duplications and make the structure easier to follow. One example of this would be that the disclosure on the human rights policy has been moved from the social standards to ESRS 2, reflecting feedback from the public outreach. The specificities of policies, actions, and targets for these affected stakeholder groups have been partially kept as illustrations in application requirements or the non-mandatory illustrative guidance. Lastly, ESRS S1 S4 Disclosure Requirement 2, Engagement, Channels to raise concerns and approaches to remedy, have been streamlined by merging the previous DRs 2 and 3 into a single combined disclosure. This now addresses stakeholder engagement, channels to raise concerns, grievance mechanisms, and approaches to remedy. This consolidation helps simplify the overall structure and avoid repeating information. ESRS S1 continues to be the only social standard with standardized metrics. The 12 metric disclosure requirements have been simplified by reducing granularity and the number of data points. At the same time, the application requirements have been made more concise, helping to clarify the key concepts. Here are the highlights of the key changes. S1.5 Characteristics of employees. This disclosure remains as it is key to defines the population for other ESRS S1 metrics, but it has been simplified by removing several data points related to breakdowns, whether mandatory or voluntary, and the need to provide methodologies or contextual information. A key change is the revision of the significant employment threshold. It now focuses on the top 10 countries with the highest number of employees, rather than those accounting for 10% of total employees. This new threshold has been introduced in the public consultation questionnaire as a specific question. Sustainability teams have now also flexibility in how they present this information, either using standardized tables or a narrative format. S1.6 Characteristics of non-employees. This disclosure has been reduced to just one essential data point, reducing the reporting burden. To support preparers identifying when self-employed people and people employed by a third party engaged in employment activities are material, a clarification has been included in the application requirement. S1.7 Collective bargaining coverage and social dialogue. This disclosure remains to show the extent of collective bargaining and social dialogue both inside and outside the European Economic Area. The same significant threshold used in S1.5 to 50 or more employees and 10 largest countries by employee numbers was also introduced here to ensure alignment. S1.9 Adequate wages. This disclosure requirement has been clarified via the application requirement. It explains which adequate wage benchmark shall be used outside the EU, based on an agreement adopted by the International Labour Organization governing body in February 2024. This agreement introduces a methodology to calculate wages established in accordance with ILO wage setting principles and the ILO principles for determining a living wage. For EU countries, the application requirement has been amended to reflect that the EU Minimum Wage Directive is in force since the adoption of the ESRS. The revised non-EU wage hierarchy has also been included as a specific question in the public consultation. Health and safety disclosures remain largely unchanged and continue to align with the EU's SFDR principal adverse impact indicators. The key requirements are still there, but with clearer guidance and more focused expectations. In response to stakeholder concerns, fatalities due to ill health among non-employees or value chain workers on site have been excluded from the total fatality count. It has also been clarified what counts as work-related injury or illness. On S115, remuneration. The pivotal social disclosures on remuneration metrics, such as gender pay gap and annual remuneration ratio, remain mostly unchanged. These data points are also aligned with the EU ESFDR PAI requirements. Various options to disclose relevant contextual information have been merged into a single and concise application requirement. The option to present the gender pay gap adjusted by employee category or country/segment has been deleted, but included as specific question in the public consultation to obtain feedback from the stakeholders. On S116, incidents of discrimination and other human rights incidents. This disclosure has been significantly simplified whilst retaining the two SFDR PI's data points. The focus is now clearer on human rights incidents, with a defined scope based on internationally recognized human rights from draft amended ESRS 2AR30. We have introduced a clause that makes it clear that only verified cases of discrimination or human rights violations must be reported. This change responds directly to stakeholder feedback, calling for clearer definitions and more practical guidance. Data points on the number of complaints filed through channels to raise concerns and to national contact points have also been deleted. Lastly, across all four social standards, there has been concerted efforts to reduce the number of narrative disclosures. Consistent amendments have been made to the first four disclosure requirements, covering policies, actions, targets, engagement, and remedy processes. For the remaining disclosure requirements that are subject to phased-in provisions, further simplifications have been introduced in ESRS S1. S18 diversity metrics. This disclosure has now been reduced to one single data point: the gender distribution in top management. The previously required age distribution has been deleted. S110 social protection. The number of major live events to be covered under this disclosure has been reduced from 5 to 4. S111 for persons with disabilities. Additional clarifications have been included in the application requirement, covering both definitions and reporting practices to better support preparers. S112 training and skills development. The requirement for gender breakdowns in training metrics have been deleted, reducing the level of disaggregation needed. S114 work-life balance. This disclosure now focuses on just one single data point: entitlement of family-related leave, rather than reporting on the number of employees who actually took it. Taken all together, what's the impact of the revised social standards? The word count has been reduced by 67% for ESRS S1 on own workforce, 71% for S2 on workers in the value chain, 73% for S3 on affected communities, and 75% for S4 on consumers and end users, in line with the omnibus proposals. There's also been a major cut in mandatory data points, down by 53% in S1, 60% in S2, 62% in S3, and 64% in S4. These updates are more than just technical tweaks. They mark a strategic evolution shaped by real-world experience from the first wave of sustainability reporting. You can now count on a sharper, more focused set of disclosures, thanks to a shift from detailed narrative disclosures to a more principles-based approach in the common requirements. More flexibility for reporting teams, with reduced granularity, fewer required breakdowns, and the option to report certain disclosures using either tables or narrative text. Clearer guidance, including improved definitions, concrete examples, and standardized formulas for ESRS S1 metrics. Better alignment with EU regulations through the consolidation, and in some cases reformulation, of principal adverse impact indicators under the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation across all social standards. What happens next? Now it's your turn. Be part of the conversation and shape the future of sustainability reporting. Take part in the 60-day public consultation. In the public survey, we've included specific questions on key topics, such as the new threshold for the 10 largest countries, the non-EU hierarchy for adequate wages, and the adjusted pay gap. Your input matters. Head to ifrag.org and share your feedback by 29 September 2025. Your insights will help make the revised standards more practical, meaningful, and fit for purpose. Thanks for watching.